Hey everybody, my name is Paul Eston Jr., aka Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Happy Easter, happy Sunday to everybody who celebrates, and we appreciate you. We're jumping on, of course, to talk about a true underdog story, someone that has stood out inside the New York Jets building, dating back from last season, and that momentum continuing into this season. And before we get there, let's give a shout out to Rich Samini, who had this story in his Sunday morning column here on April 9th. Here's the quote, and then we'll get into it a little bit. Quote, everybody loves a good long shot story, right? For the next few months, keep an eye on wide receiver Irvin Charles, who made the practice squad last season as an undrafted free agent out of Indiana University, PA. He impressed last season on the practice field and has carried that momentum into the offseason with his studious approach. The team is stacked at receiver, but Charles, listed at 6'4", 219 pounds, is big enough to be a flex tight end. Interesting prospect. End quote. And, I can speak to this, and I'm sure it's a tradition among Jet fans everywhere. Every summer, we scour the 90-man New York Jets roster, and each of us pick our guys. Over the years, there's been guys like David Clowney. There's been guys like Sharon Peak. There's been guys like, obviously, Lawrence Cager, who even flip positions, or guys that, for whatever reason, it could be size, could be a Wayne Corbett like story, whatever it is, that we root for those guys to either make the roster. It gives us someone to look at as we're going through training camp practices and things of that nature. And the next guy on that list could very well be Irvin Charles. I know there were some Jet fans on him last year, but this is a guy that does have intriguing size. Again, he's listed at 6'4", 219 pounds. And also, guys, as we're going through this video, feel free to check out my full article down below talking about this. And we're going to talk about the comparison I made in the article. And quite frankly, I think you could see it. If you look at Irvin Charles and you squint a little, you see Quincy Enunwa, who, of course, was a fan favorite from a few years ago. Remember, he's a former sixth-round pick, 209th overall back during the 2014 NFL draft. And if you remember Quincy's story, it actually took him a while to become, well, Quincy Enunwa. He didn't even make the roster as a rookie. He was cut. He ended up going to the practice squad. The next year, he gets that suspension. So it took him a few years, 3 years to be exact, to really be that guy where he's getting 800 plus receiving yards and finds his way on the roster. But I do believe Irvin Charles has the potential to be that kind of move piece at that kind of size. And he's got a little bit of girth. Again, he's 2 inches taller than Quincy, but 6 pounds lighter at 219. But to me, that's kind of not only the physical profile you look for, but again, the realistic path of a guy that is on the outside in a stacked receiving core. Like, let's be honest. If Irvin Charles, who last year did not make the roster, found it difficult with these guys, Braxton Berrios, Corey Davis, Denzel Mims, Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, and Jeff Smith, if he could make it then, it's going to prove even more difficult this time around, because here are the new pieces in the mix. Obviously, the Jets cut Braxton Berrios. Jeff Smith signed with the New York Giants, and they traded Elijah Moore to the Cleveland Browns. But the Jets did already add two new pieces to the puzzle, and Alan Lazard on $44 million. Yeah, he's making the roster. Mecole Hardman on a 1-year flyer. He's making the roster. And of course, there's been the flirtations with Odell Beckham Jr., the former LSU product, who obviously, when he signs, he will, of course, make the roster. So it's going to prove very difficult for Irvin to make the 53. And maybe it's not going to happen. But that shouldn't deter him or us as fans for rooting for his story, because maybe he will have a path, injuries, and all kinds of things happen. And still, if he can be on the practice squad and be that guy that you're developing along slowly, you never know when you're going to need someone. And this Irvin Charles kid is someone that has impressed the people inside the building, both on the practice field and in the lab. That's where really, you're getting that work and you're grinding. You're separating from the good and the great prospects. You're separating yourself by making sure you do all the work and making sure, as Samini noted, his studious approach, learning the playbook, and just, getting out there. So I'm very intrigued with Irvin Charles. There was a little bit of buzz last year. I think there's even more buzz now, potentially, to make this thing again. It's going to be difficult. I'm not going to lie, but that's what is cool about these long shot stories that I think we really appreciate. And it dates back to the Jets as this being of a natural underdog in the NFL. Go back to Super Bowl III, 1969, when no one thought the Jets were going to beat the heavily favored Colts, and then they did. So the Jets and our Jet fans have embraced the underdog role. That's always been something that's been around the team, and now they could have a chance here with another underdog story, and Irvin Charles. This is a guy who's turning heads on the practice field and inside the building. And I want to make sure you guys know that is a guy that you should keep an eye on as we progress through this off-season process. Well, everybody, make sure you like the video, hit subscribe down below for more juicy and sexy New York Jets content. I'll give you a tease. We have a New York Jets player joining us this week on the schedule. I'll let you know when that is finalized, of course, but that's another reason to subscribe to the channel. You'll never miss it. So we're going to be having a current, brand new Jets player that just inked a contract joining us on the channel this week. It's been in the works for a couple of weeks, but we had to wait till some contracts were official. So looking forward to that, and hopefully you guys can join us for that conversation. Again, happy Easter to each and every one of you. And I want to make sure you know from the bottom of my heart, whether you're a new subscriber or old subscriber, we're 4,000 plus strong. All those are appreciated. That from the bottom of my heart, it means the world that you guys choose every day to take a little bit of time out of your day to hopefully be entertained, informed, or what have you on this channel. It means the world. Again, happy Easter, everybody, and we'll see you next time right here on the channel. God bless.